Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay All Day, and today's episode, we're going to bring you an MMA Business Hour episode where I'm going to break down my potential UFC 300 card. I'm going to go over the prelims, some of the fights that are already booked, and a 5-fight main card for UFC 300. If I was booking with Dana White this card, I'm going to break down all 5 of the fights that would give fans the absolute best card for UFC 300. Let's get into it. Alright, UFC fans, UFC 300 is only about 4 months away. Dana White has already announced 3 fights that are going to be on this card, but all 3 of those fights, they're all going in the prelims on my card. First, we're going to start with Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage. I wish they would have given Bo Nickal a little bit better of competition. If you check out this fight, guys, Cody Brundage is not very good. I mean, Bo Nickal 5-0. He's doing pretty good in the UFC. He looks pretty good. He's fought a bunch of tomato cans so far, but he's a really good wrestler, and his striking looks better and better each time he gets into the octagon. Bo Nickal does overcommit a little bit with his strikes, and as he fights better competition, that could potentially get him in trouble. But Cody Brundage is known for his wrestling, and he's not going to be able to wrestle with Bo Nickal. I just don't see any path to victory, and neither does Vegas. I think Bo Nickal is like minus 1,500 right now in the betting odds, and I bet you as UFC 300 gets closer, it's going to be more like minus 2,000. If you want to launch a star like Bo Nickal at UFC 300, you got to give him somebody who's like at least recognizable to the nonchalant fan, the fans that are only going to be tuning into UFC 300 because like Conor McGregor's on the card or something like that. Cody Brundage doesn't do anything for Bo Nickal. If he beats him, they're just going to be like, okay, he beat another bum. If we look at him, he's 2 wins in his last 5 fights. He's got losses to Olin Jacek, Rodolfo Vieira, and Sidek Dumas. I mean, these guys aren't, potential top 10 fighters, top 5 fighters in the UFC in this division. I don't like this fight for Bo Nickal, so for me, this fight's going to open up the prelims. It's probably only going to last like 2 minutes or 3 minutes like all his other fights. It's a really bad fight for Bo Nickal. I just don't like this fight. It's a lose-lose situation. If he beats him, he beats a bum. And if he loses, all the hype is gone for Bo Nickal, guys. And then we have Calvin Kattar and Aljamain Sterling. Aljo is moving up to 145, clearing that path for Merab, who is fighting Henry Cejudo at 135 pounds to get a potential title shot. I like this fight for Calvin Kattar. He hasn't been so good in his last few fights, guys. I think he's lost like 3 out of his last 4 fights. Yeah, 3 out of his last 5 fights Calvin Kattar has lost. He's got losses to Arnold Allen, who's really good. I really like Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett, and Max Holloway. I don't really see a clear path to victory for Calvin Kattar. Aljamain Sterling cannot get in a boxing match with Calvin Kattar because he'll probably lose that boxing match. He's going to need to take Calvin Kattar down. Kattar hasn't really fought a lot of wrestlers in the UFC so far, so I think Aljo is going to clearly win this fight. It's not good enough to be on the main card of UFC 300, so that fight is going on the prelims too. Next, we move on to Yuri Prochazka and Alexander Rakic. This seems to be a title eliminator at 205 potentially, but I would like to see the winner of this fight potentially fight Khalil Roundtree for the number 1 spot at 205. Khalil Roundtree Jr. looks really good. Look for Khalil Roundtree to win a lot of big fights and get a potential title shot in 2024. He beat the brakes off Anthony Smith, so I like Roundtree to potentially maybe Blachowicz when he gets back. We'll see what happens with this Rakic and Yuri Prochazka fight. Both these guys get hurt a lot. It should be a really good fight, but not enough for the main card. This is going to stay on the prelims. Okay, guys, I want to give you 2 fights that I'm going to add to the prelims at UFC 300. In addition to the 3 fights that are already booked for UFC 300 that are all going on the prelims, I'm adding 2 more fights. The first one being Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt 2, the rematch. Cody Garbrandt came out and said that fight doesn't really interest him, but Cody Garbrandt has no pull in the UFC at all whatsoever anymore. You just beat Brian Kelleher, dude. And let's be serious. Brian Kelleher is a bum. You haven't beat someone good in the 135-pound division in years, Cody Garbrandt. So this is the perfect time for you guys to get on the prelims, probably the fourth fight of the prelims. Dominick Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt. All right, UFC fans, now I'm going to give you the main event for the prelims for UFC 300. This fight is going to be an absolute banger, and it's going to launch us into the best card of the year for sure, UFC 300. And that main event for the prelims at UFC 300 is Michael Chandler versus Rafael Fiziev. Listen, guys, a lot of people want Michael Chandler to fight Conor McGregor, but let's call a spade a spade. If Conor McGregor wanted to fight Michael Chandler, this fight would have been booked already. Michael Chandler is so desperate and has been waiting so long for Conor McGregor to agree to this fight and get a fight date, but it's just not coming. We have another fight that Conor McGregor could potentially have on this card, but the main event for the prelims at UFC 300 is an absolute banger. Michael Chandler, Rafael Fiziev. This fight is going to be absolutely insane. And that's why it's going to launch us into the pay-per-view. Someone's getting knocked out. Someone's going to get absolutely smoked. And this fight is great for both guys. Whoever wins this fight, it could be a title eliminator fight where the winner of this fight would fight the winner of Islam Makhachev and Justin Gaethje. Islam Makhachev and a lot of these other Muslim fighters are not going to be on the UFC 300 card because of Ramadan. It falls right when this card takes place. So Islam said he wants to fight in March, so I look for them to book that Justin Gaethje Islam fight maybe at UFC 299. But Michael Chandler, Rafael Fiziev, what do you guys think of this fight? I think it's going to be absolutely insane. It should be so much fun. And this fight has to be on UFC 300, whether it's on the main card or the prelims. Book this fight. Chandler and McGregor is not happening. We have to move on. Michael Chandler needs to move on. And the perfect opponent for him is Rafael Fiziev. Now, guys, what you've all been waiting for, I'm going to give you 5 fights for the main card at UFC 300. Let's get into it. UFC 300 is upon us, and opening up the card for UFC 300 is a fight on nobody's radar, and that fight is Corey Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo, the former 125-pound champion. Now, this fight opens up the card with an absolute banger. And let's be serious, guys. I don't want to watch the winner of Merab and Henry Cejudo wrestle fuck Sean O'Malley. It's just going to be a boring fight, guys. We want an exciting fight to set up for later in the year. So that's why we have Corey Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo. And whoever wins that fight between these two guys leapfrogs Merab and Henry Cejudo to fight the winner of the Sean O'Malley Chito Vera title fight. I think this is a great way to open up UFC 300. This fight's going to be absolutely fireworks, man. A fight between Corey Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo is going to be must watch from the moment the fight starts to whenever it ends. I think someone's going to get finished, but Deiveson Figueiredo looked really, really good against Rob Font. His boxing looks good. His power really translated to 135 pounds. And that's a really tough matchup for Corey Sandhagen, who looked good in his last fight, even though he got hurt and he had to wrestle a little bit. But man, these guys are going to be evenly matched, and it'll be a fun chess match because obviously Corey Sandhagen is the taller, longer fighter, and Deiveson Figueiredo is a little more compact and has more power. And there's no way on earth that this fight could be boring between Deiveson Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen. And I like the winner of this fight to leapfrog Merab and Cejudo winner to fight the winner of Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. I think Sean O'Malley is going to win that fight. So Sean O'Malley versus Deiveson Figueiredo or Corey Sandhagen, that's the fight to make. Merab, Cejudo, no one is paying pay-per-view dollars to watch Cejudo and Merab fight. That's why I'm booking to open up UFC 300, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Corey Sandhagen. When I was constructing this UFC 300 dream card, I wanted to put together fights in all of my favorite weight divisions. And that means we have to have a fight at 145 pounds, guys. But Volkanovski and Topuria already booked. Arnold Allen already has a fight. Brian Ortega has a fight. Yair Rodriguez has a fight. So that leaves Max Holloway versus Josh Emmett at 145 pounds. Josh Emmett just had the knockout of the year against Bryce Mitchell. He absolutely put him in the shadow realms, and this fight is going to be so much fun. And this is the time you want to ride the Josh Emmett hype, man. He's never going to be more popular than he is right now. That's why you put him up against a guy like Max Holloway, who has never even been knocked down. He's never really even been hurt in any of his UFC fights. So this is a fan favorite fight. This fight, there's no way on earth that this fight could ever be boring. It's going to be fireworks. Max Holloway, Josh Emmett, book this fight for the second fight at UFC 300. When you have the biggest card in a decade for the UFC, we need some big dudes to throw absolute bombs at each other. That's why we're getting a great heavyweight fight for the third fight for UFC 300. And that's between Cyril Gane and Sergey Pavlovich. Yeah, that's right. Gane, Pavlovich, this fight is going to be crazy. Someone's getting knocked out. Cyril Gane looked really good against Sergey Spivak. He easily won that fight. He was piecing him up with body kicks and leg kicks and really good 1-2s. And then, obviously, Tom Aspinall knocked out the hype train of Sergey Pavlovich. But Pavlovich is still a beast. He's still a fan favorite. And him and Cyril Gane going head-to-head at UFC 300. There's no better fight to make in the heavyweight division right now. Tom Aspinall is going to have to wait out the whole John Jones-Stipe situation, which sucks for him. That's why the heavyweight fight to make for UFC 300 is Pavlovich versus Cyril Gane. That fight's going to be incredible. Let me know in the comments below. Do you like that fight? Because I love that fight. Okay, now let's get into the co-main event and the main event for UFC 300. I've been going back and forth with who I wanted to fight in these two headlining events at UFC 300, and I came to the conclusion that the best fight to make for the co-main event is Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 3 at 205 pounds for the belt. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, we want to see Izzy and Khamzat Chimaev. Just hear me out a little bit. This is a story of redemption for both fighters. Izzy tried to get the 205 belt before and lost to Jan Blachowicz, and Alex Pereira got knocked the fuck out by Israel Adesanya in their last fight. And I'm sure he's going to want to get that loss back for sure. So that's why I think it makes the most sense from a business standpoint and for the legacy of Israel Adesanya. If Izzy can beat Pereira again and lock up another belt at 205 pounds, this really solidifies his legacy as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, man. I think he really wants to get that 205 strap. So I think the Alex Pereira fight is going to be there. We'll see if Khamzat Chimaev, but because of Ramadan, I don't think he's going to fight. So that's why I think the fight to make is Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira 3 in the UFC for the 205-pound belt. Yeah, baby, that fight's going to be dope. Someone's getting KO'd. Faux show. All right, now we have the main event for UFC 300. Since I already booked Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor will not be fighting Michael Chandler in the main event. Conor McGregor is going to be fighting Dustin Poirier. They have a lot of unfinished business, guys. If Conor McGregor wanted to fight Michael Chandler, that fight would have been booked. I know the UFC probably doesn't want to book Conor McGregor for UFC 300 because it's already going to have a lot of juice, and they probably want to save him for like July International Fight Week to like headline another card and make even more money. From a business perspective, that makes a lot of sense. But I think fans are going to be annoyed if Conor McGregor is not on UFC 300, and they're going to make a ton of money if he's on this card. Obviously, the last two fights with Dustin Poirier did not go his way, the last one being the leg break, so there's a lot of unfinished business there. And this will be it for this kind of rivalry in the UFC. One more time, we're going to do Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor for all the bragging rights. This and could potentially maybe get Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor, whoever wins, back into the title conversation. It's either going to be Michael Chandler and Fiziev, whoever wins that fight, or whoever wins between Dustin Poirier And Conor McGregor will get that title shot of whoever wins between Islam Makhachev and Justin Gaethje, which I think is going to be booked in March. So that's it, guys. We're going to headline with Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 4. Then we're going to go Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya for the 205 strap. And then we're going to go a heavyweight barn burner between Sergey Pavlovich and Cyril Gane. And then we're going to move on to Max Holloway versus Josh Emmett, a great fight. And then a 135 slobber knocker between Corey Sandhagen and Davison Figueiredo. That is my dream card for UFC 300. Let me know in the comments below. Who would you like to see fight on the UFC 300 card? Do you agree with some of my fights? Do you like some of my fights? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Peace!